On October 12, 2000, the USS Cole, a United States Navy guided missile destroyer, was refueling in the Yemeni port of Aden when it was attacked by suicide bombers. The explosion ripped a hole in the ship's hull, killing 17 sailors and injuring 37 others. The attack was another blow delivered by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda in the lead-up to 9/11. In this video, we will take a closer look at the events leading up to the Cole bombing, the attack itself, and its aftermath. The attack on the Cole has its origin starting in 1999. Al-Qaeda was fresh off their 1998 attack on the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania and had begun planning a new series of attacks. The most notable of these was the planning of what would become the 9/11 attacks. But another plot was also being planned that became known as the Millennium Plot. Al-Qaeda had planned a series of attacks to coincide with the celebrations of entering the year 2000. This plot included a plan to bomb LA International Airport, also a plan to hijack an airliner, and a plan to bomb a U.S. Navy vessel. The plan to bomb LAX was thwarted by the FBI, although Al-Qaeda did succeed in hijacking Indian Airlines Flight 814 on Christmas Eve 1999. They forced the plane to land in Afghanistan, and after a week of negotiations, India released 3 prominent terror prisoners in exchange for the hostages. As for attacking a U.S. Navy vessel, Al-Qaeda attempted to bomb the USS The Sullivans on January 3, 2000, while it was refueling in the port of Aden, the same location the Cole would be bombed 9 months later. The attempted bombing failed. The boat used by the would-be bombers sunk due to being overweight from the explosives loaded in it. Unfortunately, the USS The Sullivans was never aware it was in any danger, therefore the plot went undetected. After this failed attempt, Al-Qaeda doubled down on their efforts to attack an American ship. They would get their opportunity 9 months later. On October 12, 2000, the USS Cole was coming into the port of Aden to refuel after being on patrol in the region as part of sanction enforcement against Iraq. The ship came into port and moored without incident at 09:30. The ship began refueling promptly at 10:30 while sailors began to line up for an early lunch. Meanwhile, a small fiberglass boat began making its way to the Cole. The boat was loaded with over 1,000 pounds of C4. It approached the Cole and it was observed by a sailor standing on deck. At this time, there was no security protocols relating to any attempted attacks by a small vessel, and this boat did not appear to pose a threat. The 2 Al-Qaeda operatives saluted the sailor before ramming the destroyer and detonating their explosives at 11:18. The blast created a 40-foot by 60-foot hole in the side of the Cole, allowing water to rush into the ship's port side. The explosive force entered into a mechanical space just below the ship's galley where many of the sailors were still in line for lunch or already eating. The deck of the galley was violently forced up, causing the death and injury of many of the sailors. The ship's crew immediately went into general quarters, and damage control was begun on the ship to control the flooding and begin to help the wounded. The next 96 hours became critical for the Cole. Its crew began working non-stop to ensure the ship stayed afloat. Flooding was controlled as best as possible, and assistance began to arrive in the form of the Royal Navy frigate HMS Marlborough. The Marlborough had a full medical team that immediately went to work assisting the wounded. In addition, the French Air Force arrived to evacuate the most critically wounded sailors. The cooperation and promptness of the international response is a testament to the strength of America's oldest alliances. On October 15th, U.S. Navy divers began working to continue damage control efforts on the interior of the ship, as well as recovering the fallen sailors. The divers successfully stopped the worst of the remaining flooding. By October 29th, the Cole was towed out of Aden with a skeleton crew before being loaded onto a heavy lift ship in order to be transported back to the United States. The ship was repaired within 18 months of the attack and had its first overseas deployment in November of 2003. It carried a plaque honoring the 17 sailors who lost their lives. 37 others were wounded in the attack. The Yemeni government actively interfered with the subsequent FBI investigation into the attack. By early January 2001, the FBI believed they had clear evidence that Al-Qaeda was responsible for the attack. Justice for the Cole bombing was hard to come by. Tying specific members of Al-Qaeda to the Cole bombing proved difficult. With the September 11th attacks, the focus changed to seeking the perpetrators of that tragedy. Several were arrested and charged in Yemen, while others that were suspected of assisting in the attack were captured or killed in Afghanistan in the following years. For Al-Qaeda, the bombing was a massive propaganda success. While they had failed to sink the ship, their ability and willingness to attack an American naval vessel helped boost their recruitment in the following months. The attack on the Cole was yet another blow to the United States by Al-Qaeda. The bombing would later be overshadowed by 9/11, but the pain the survivors and families of the 17 sailors murdered that day remains all too real. The names of those that were lost are included in the description below, as well as a link to a page containing a brief biography of those brave men and women who were lost. I ask that you take the time to reflect on their sacrifice. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.